is so, so similar. And that's really exciting to me because I think there is so much potential in podcasting. I think what creators are doing is so exciting. It's so necessary. So again, being in the business of helping you make money is what I am all about. So thank you again for being here and for giving us the time to talk to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Crystal D. Cameron. I manage our global events and sponsorships arm of our company. The company being AdsWiz. AdsWiz is the sister parent company of Simplecast, and we are a fully stack ad technology company that works with publishers, advertisers, agencies to ensure that monetization is happening, creators are getting paid for the content that they make. So what we do is really have the tools, the technology tools to make sure all of that happens on the back end so you all can get paid on the front end. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the event and sponsorship part of it, how to have events, how to make sure that your brand is at the forefront at different events, and also how to host your own events in order to elevate your brand or bring about awareness so you can continue to move further down the tunnel as well.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about maybe some terms that you've seen before and acronyms. There's so many acronyms that we use in the industry every day. I always am the first person to ask, what does this mean? And one of the things that you might have heard is how many downloads you need to have per month, how many, what's your reach if you know the size of your audience, and DAI. And if you have not heard about DAI, that is dynamic ad insertion. And at its simplest, when you have an episode or a piece of content in your podcast, right, and you've got ads that are built into that audio file, that is just a monetized podcast, right? Those are just ads. A dynamic ad is one that can be moved around. It's one that can change and can be deleted, which is another opportunity for you to sell it to additional advertisers and make more money. So focus on the dynamic, right? It's changeable, it's adaptive, it's additional revenue over a greater period of time. And in the dynamic ad insertion world, again, there's lots of targeting opportunities. So all that really, really good data that you're getting either from your socials or, again, whichever podcast platform you're using, there's analytics that can help you get really, really focused and hyper-targeted on how you work with the dynamic ads you can insert into your podcast episode. Any questions on DAI before I speed through it? Okay, let's keep it rolling. So how can your podcast be monetized? I was actually lucky enough to go to an event in Houston, Texas on Wednesday of this week. And it was great to see and meet and get to network with content creators and independent podcasters. And they gave me really, I would say, 3 takeaways that I thought were powerful, so I'll share them with you. One is think outside the box. Think outside the box, and you do not have to go through anything that is prescriptive or that is suggested to you. There is so much information out there saying the do's and don'ts. Go your own path. Think outside that box and do what works for your listeners. No one knows them better than you. The second piece of advice that I heard at this conference was know your worth and set your rate. I'll say that again. Know your worth and set your rate. You have the thing that advertisers want. You have the connection to the audience and you have the content. So that is powerful in and of itself. You do not have to come out with a generic rate card or you know your worth. So let's put a price tag on that. And then thinking outside the box. So if you've got a second podcast, third podcast, 15th podcast that you're thinking about launching, there is nothing that is stopping you from launching with the sponsor attached to that podcast. You can do that. If you're starting from day one and you know your audience, you know the products they're consuming, you know it's a great brand fit for you, reach out to that sponsor. You can literally start day one with ads in your podcast. There's nothing that says that you need to reach A, B, C level. So thinking outside the box is a really powerful way to monetize. Affiliate programs, one of the bullet points you see on here, is probably one that's really familiar to everyone. You listen to this episode and the podcast host reads off a specific code, right? So maybe it's HelloFresh. Go to them and use this code exclusively for our members. That can be a really, really easy entry method if you're just starting out with monetizing your podcast. Subscriptions and memberships is the other one I'm going to talk about before I toss it over to Crystal. If you've got exclusive content, so maybe you are going to you're going to record a 60-minute episode that's available to your listeners for X number, they pay maybe $5 a month to have access to that content. That's another revenue stream. So make sure you know your audience, that's where the power is, and when you get to that place of analyzing your data, it'll inform where you go. You do not have to do every single thing that's listed on this slide, absolutely not. That's where thinking outside the box is your best friend. Only you know what will work best. So events, we're gonna come and talk about events because that's another thing to think about for 2023 or wherever you are on your journey, and including that in your marketing mix.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll talk about events now. So I love events, that's what I do. And the reason why I love events is because it's a perfect opportunity for you to elevate yourself amongst agencies, brands, and conferences. One of the things I like to talk about when it comes to events are the type of event sponsorships. Obviously, we have a sponsorship here with Afros and Audio, but there are different ways that you can sponsor. I mean, Nicole touched on this earlier, having naming rights to the event, sponsoring a particular session. Even in that session, there are some times where if you go to like a local event that Amy goes to, you go to the website, you do your research with local events pertaining to your audience or the industry that you're in, they may ask for speakerships. That's an earned event where you can say, hey, I have something to say to this audience, but you can also elevate your brand and you can submit like a presentation, get it approved, and you can always also be on stage. Most times they do ask for it to be educational and not just try to like sell what you have the whole time. But it's a great way to really get your brand out there, to get people to start investing in your brand. And then also with other companies being at these other events, they'll look to partner with you as well, because again, you have the audience, you have what is unique, the unique selling point in order to partner with that particular person. So branded sponsorships, you can walk, like if you wanted to really get your name amongst an audience, say for instance, we were, here, there are plenty of opportunities. You can go to these sponsorship organizers, say, hey, I want to sponsor a luncheon, or you know what, the breakfast and break, that's gonna be on us. That way you get your logo placed all around, everywhere. We have lanyards here. You can say, I wanna be the sponsorship for the lanyards and get your name placed on like different logos. Like those are easy buy-ins in ways that people around you, people in the audience at any event, like not even just this one, can remember your name and remember your significance. And when you make those connections and they come up to talk to you, whether it's at the booth or after about what you do, they already seeing that logo in their head. Because what is it like, after 3 times you see a logo, that impression is made and people become curious. And even after a speech, they're like, you know what, let me learn more about what that particular company does because I've seen them around a lot. So the types of events I want to talk about are on-site events and affiliate partnership. That's what we're doing right now. Like we see that we have the backdrop back there. You have certain companies that set up in order to exhibit and pass out their things. That is a great way to really get your name into the mix and have people come up to talk to you. Another way is an off-site event. So if you're saying, hey, we're in Philly this weekend, you know what? We're gonna throw the opening party, or we're gonna throw an after party ourselves, or some sort of brunch or breakfast or anything like that. You have the power to do that. Like find a really nice venue or something small and just host it yourself. And lastly, especially for the content creators, a listening party. Like that gets a true buy-in from your audience. Put the word out there, make a digital flyer, have people come to the house, get a little charcuterie board going, some wine from Trader Joe's, and just get the people there to start talking about it and get their feedback. Because with their feedback, they may even understand other products and services that you can partner with in order to help them sponsor you and get that buy-in as well. So I think for events, yep, that was pretty much all I had. There's obviously so much more, but when it comes to monetization and the ads, I really want Amy to take a deeper dive into that because that is something that's, top tier for our individual creators.
Okay, you started talking about charcuterie boards and I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah, my bad, sis. I'm so sorry.
That made my mouth water a little. So the basics, and I'm gonna keep this real high level and really short. If there's anything you wanna dive deeper into, please, 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 I'm here today, all day tomorrow. We can talk more about all of this, but there are 3 different things I'm gonna cover really quick. The ads themselves, which is the asset, the delivery of the ad, and then how the ad gets bought and sold, so the transaction of that. So the actual asset, there are 2 different categories for the ads. One is host read, and that's probably the most popular one, the one that everybody is familiar with. The benefits of those host read ads is that it's organic to the listener, right? There's so many podcasts I listen to where I don't even realize I am hearing an ad because it's so endemic to the episode. I've heard the podcaster talk about this in their own life. So there's a lot of benefits to that, again, for the podcaster, our content creator, for the listener, and then for the advertiser, right? They love that. There is nothing better to an advertiser than them being organically placed within your content. The second type of asset or ad is a produced ad. So those are ones that are pre-recorded. They probably have some kind of sound embedded, so it's typical of what you would expect in either a digital audio or traditional radio experience, right? It's got the jingle, it's got the tune, the phone number, all those things. So those are the 2 different types of ads. Moving on to, and again, we fly through these slides because I couldn't do that to y'all on Saturday. The delivery of how you get an ad. So baked in, and a baked in ad is when that listener downloads your episode, it is all one audio file. So everything is within that audio file. The second, which I touched on a little earlier, is the dynamic ad insertion. So that is one that can be moved. It can be when you record your episode, you can set specific markers so you know that at the 8-minute mark, we're gonna do an ad, and 14-minute mark, we're gonna do an ad. It can change out, and the benefit to advertisers is that you can resell that, which is more money for you, put a star next to that. If you've got a sponsor that does holiday ads, let's say, and you know that you recorded this episode around July 4th, but a listener is experiencing that and they're hearing a Halloween ad, that's your dynamic ad right there. So the creative can change. So a lot of power in dynamic ads and being able to, A, make you more money. I don't know how many more times I can say that. The final thing we're going to talk about is how everything gets bought and sold. So this is a little bit more complex, but it represents what I would say a healthy ecosystem. All these different ways that you can have the transaction take place is good for podcasting. The more means of entry we have for you all to make money, the better for all of us. Those of us in the industry that work on the backside, content creators, advertisers, it's a good thing that we have multiple ways that we can do it. So direct sales is as easy as it sounds. There's really no explanation. So you going straight to a sponsor and transacting that deal is direct sales. You might have a publisher, and the publisher is going direct to the sponsor. So what happens is there's a digital form where the terms are agreed to. Maybe there's a specific set of impressions that are going to be delivered, and impressions is usually going to be downloads. There's going to be a time frame that's agreed to, so maybe 3 months for a campaign. Maybe you've got 1 month that's going to be sponsored by one advertiser exclusively, whatever those terms are. And then on the back end, how that all happens is that on that digital form that you've all agreed to, which is normally called an insertion order, an IO, is that a campaign manager or your ad ops team, if you are at a bigger publisher, is going to make sure that everything we agreed to happened, right? So then we can go back to Mr. Advertiser, Miss Advertiser, and say, hey, everything that you were expecting, we delivered on. I'm only going to talk about the automated marketplace a little bit. And the biggest thing to walk away from is that the word automation, is your friend. Automation is our friends, right? If there's more things in my life that I could make automatic, what a beautiful world that would be. But it's incredibly efficient. It's incredibly efficient when we get into an automated marketplace. So there's 2 different ways that that can happen. It can be private, which means that advertisers are coming just to one content creator, and they are seeing your inventory, and they are able to make that agreement direct, knowing what your inventory is and how they can insert their ads into it over, again, that campaign time, agreed to directly with you, and that's the private marketplace. Public marketplaces is where advertisers can come and they can purchase multiple publishers, multiple pieces of content. And what happens is that transaction and the automation of it takes place on an ad delivery system. So at any given time when a listener downloads an episode, a call is made to this ad server to see what ads are available that fit the parameters of this episode. So let's say you've got a podcast that is all about relaxation, it's all about wellness, and when you list your content and the inventory within this episode, a mattress company, like a major mattress company, can say, hey, this criteria fits our bill, we want to insert on this episode at this time. That's what that transaction is doing without people touching it. It's all automated, which is a beautiful thing. Again, automation is our friend, it means efficiency. And there are additional criteria and targeting metrics that you can put against that. So if an advertiser is looking for people that live within a specific geographic area, they can search that criteria and be able to match, again, our ads with the audience we're trying to reach. They can know what time of day. So if it's commuters and we're trying to, you know, insert an ad about how easy it is to make dinner or order dinner, if there's a delivery app that you're working with. So all of those things can be set up. You can get really, really rich and really, really specific with the inventory that's available through your content, and advertisers can match that in real time to insert their ads into your podcast. That's a lot. I realize that. And we can talk more because your specific needs and your specific content is a custom experience. So we don't have a one-stop shop recommendation on what you should do on this day at this time to monetize your podcast. What we can do and what we will do, which is what Simplecast is all about, is match you up with our business development team. We've got one of the very best right here with us in the front row, Taj Aiken. So you work with someone specific on our team, and they do that needs analysis, right? Where are you at in your podcasting journey? Where are you at in your listenership? So how many people are downloading in terms of your goals? What kind of revenue are you looking to generate? Do you have a platform that is supporting you in that manner? Do we need to discuss some new terms, some new needs to get you where you want to be? So that happens with a real person. It's nothing that, you know, there's no automation or anything else like that. You're going to work with one of our managers, again, to get your needs. And I don't have anything else. We do have plenty of time for Q&A. Again, it was meant to be like that 30,000-foot look at all of the bells and whistles, hopefully explaining some of the acronyms and terminology that you might have heard. I'm happy to talk about dynamic ad insertion, the automated marketplace. Taj is an expert in that and can tell you what that means. And again, we want to make sure there's no barriers of entry because money is my favorite thing. I hope it's your favorite thing. It allows us to come here and support you, which is what our company and our goals. In my journey, just in my career, that's been my favorite thing. Custom solutions that meet your needs. That's what it's all about. So I thank you. Unless there's any questions, we can totally take questions. Yeah. Crystal is your expert in event marketing and experiential everything. We've only worked together a short time, but she is phenomenal. So please don't pass up the chance to talk with the expert.
Any questions? Okay. Nicole.
So you talked about like brand awareness, right? Like so in relation to working with people or companies, like how do I want to say this? Like what's more important, or how do you know, is brand awareness more important, or is it being able to guarantee conversion for this particular company, or is that like an individual in your
I don't think it's individual. I think it works in tandem. So there's a funnel. So you know the brand awareness is at the top. So they have to know who you are. Like you have to know who you are in order for me to invest in you first. So brand awareness is probably going to take up about 60% of your time in terms of getting your brand and your name out there, because again, you got to hit them over and over and over again, and just continue to tell your story. Be authentic when you're putting your brand out there, and then it goes into the funnel of consideration, where they're like, you know, leaning towards, well, maybe I know I'm interested. I can see that, you know, you can see that this person has. You can do that by the open rate. You can see how many times people are coming to the website, and then you put in a retargeting tool to keep retargeting them all the way until it comes down to conversion. So it is a process, but you definitely want to start with brand awareness first. You don't want to skip that depth, because you really want to take the time for people to get to know you for who you are, as opposed to putting yourself out there like, look, this is me, I'm trying to sell this, buy it from me. But you want to almost build like a trust between you and that audience. So the brand awareness is where it's definitely going to start at first. Then it goes into conversion. Then we go into consideration. And then after conversion is retainment. That's it. Woo. To keep them coming back over and over again. And that's a whole nother category, because that's where you are seeing the loyalty there, and you're putting out different content for your loyal customers as opposed to the people who are at the top of the funnel that you're trying to bring in.
So it's, I think, is it brand awareness, consideration, then conversion, or conversion?
No, yep, brand awareness, consideration. I'm thinking about it, conversion. I did it. Now let's keep them, retainment.
Yep, that's the funnel.
Anybody else? Ask more questions. I like hearing myself talk. Yes.
Yes, that is something that when you're ready, because I know not everyone is monetizing today, and that's okay, but we can talk about the two different ways you can go about doing that. So again, baked in, which means when you're recording it, you either are inserting post-read ads, or you've got produced ads if you've got a sponsor or two and they're giving you that file, and you send it and upload it and publish it as just one file. Tier 2 is that dynamic ad insertion. And you don't have to start there today. That can be something that you work up and work towards. But that can be a really good conversation to have with Taj, to talk about where to start, how to start, what that looks like, making sure it's lining up with your goals. So if you know what you want to be making this quarter or this month or this year, we can back ourselves into a plan, because again, how and where you are having your podcast host is a big factor in that, so you have all the products you need to get that baked in file out there or start to do dynamic ad insertion. And just a plug that at Simplecast we do that with the AdWids technology. So yes, to answer the question.
Yes.
If I'm doing, I guess I'm trying to figure out the difference in how much I should charge if I'm doing DAI or a baked-in ad. Would I be charging more for one than the other? Like if I find someone who wants to, invest, like am I charging one more than the other? Because I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
like how I should charge them, because I want to charge them.
No, yes, make that money. It's going to depend. And I'd say one of the biggest factors that we would want to talk to you about and know is, are you doing everything just as yourself, as the content creator, and then are you also on the back end going to be doing the ad operation, so that when you are, selling these ads into your podcast, is that you that's going to be managing it? Because if those are fees that you're maybe outsourcing to an agency, fees that you're outsourcing to someone else, that's going to chip into your bottom line. So there's no one way to answer that question without knowing your specific needs. But we can talk about that, because those are, again, if you're thinking about dynamic ad insertion, which is incredible, and I would say, yes, let's have that talk. Let's back ourselves into it knowing your output, because again, nothing should come but the sacrifice of the really, really great product you put out there. But if you're a one-person shop, then maybe that is something you outsource. So I would say you're going to have to come talk to us after.
You had a question? There you go.
Are there podcast networks that don't charge to either join or charge monthly?
So are there podcast networks that don't charge?
I had one several years ago with a podcast network, and I ran into an issue. So the monthly fee kept going whether I did the show or not. So I'm thinking about, with the shared revenue model. So, which is attractive because they handle the ad, et cetera.
Yep.
You never know, if it's active or not. So what I'm saying is that I was just wondering whether or not there are networks where, it's something I would consider if I didn't have to have another monthly commitment.
Right. to my knowledge, and I will check because I'm not the expert on this, but every network is going to have some kind of an associated fee. It's really going to depend on the size of that podcast network, the work that they're putting out in terms of, how many clients, how many podcasts do they have within the network, what's the size of their monthly revenue based on which ads are monetized, which ones aren't. So tough to answer direct, but if we talk after and you tell us a little bit more specifics, we can hopefully get you an answer. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say for the types of ads, and those are the two, either host-read or produced. Host-read by far is the one that in this industry we know, we love, and it's got the greatest benefit. One, for the podcaster, you're talking in your own voice, there's a natural cadence to it, and your listeners are probably more engaged hearing you give that ad, so that in turn is going to please the advertiser because hopefully they are going and redeeming on that code or going on the website and giving them a lot of traffic. So host-read by far, I think, is the dominant one, and one that, again, it's the most familiar, and it checks all three boxes in terms of what am I trying to say? Pleasing the audience is probably the best way to say it. Now, when it comes to content and some of the targeting that you can look at with dynamic ad insertion, that's where things can get more rich. That's where things can, and I mean rich in terms of data. So if you know your listenership, if you know where they live, if you know their buying power, the woman who has the stitching company was talking about that. That's where you can get really, really specific, and advertisers love data. So the more you come to the table with this episode performed the highest, where we had this specific guest that we talked about this particular thing, and we had our highest number of downloads. That's where you've got a little bit more power, and again, advertisers can determine if they want to do an evergreen campaign with you, and evergreen just means same ad. We're talking about the same thing. There are no holiday sales or anything that has to be switched out. They can look at something a little bit more targeted, where maybe they do want to come back and work with you on, okay, well, you're doing this piece of content further ahead, let's switch it up, and we want to be running this piece of creative then. So it's matching with your goals and what you want to see come out of this, and I think we could give you a recommendation on maybe we start here and you look ahead to this. So it's going to differ for every podcaster, but that's where the beauty is, and that's where we come in.
And I was going to say a good resource for that as well. Our company, AsWiz, puts out a podcast trends report every year, and it just gives all the data about podcasts, the categories and the trends, listeners by age, by race, and all of that information. So if you go to aswiz.com, or if you type in AsWiz podcast trends report, you can get that information there. You can go to the IAB site. That's an international advertising business site. That's not what it stands for. I just made that up. But that also works as a good resource, and also Nielsen, which is used to be really good for radio sound scans and stuff, and cable sound scan. They do have a digital portion of that now that actually does dive into podcasts as well. So those type of reports would really give you what you need to get more information on that.
Are we at time?
Yes, you are.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you so much, everybody. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yes.
Yes, all day today and tomorrow.
And we need a presentation of that.
Oh, absolutely.